Hello, I'm Hamp Overton, and this is my friend and colleague Paul Catalanato. This is 100 Scariest, where we are looking for the scary shorts streaming online. In this episode, we're talking about 2021's The Ballerina, directed and edited by Aaron Fradkin. It was written by Aaron and his wife, Victoria Fradkin. It stars Valeska Miller. We found this film on YouTube, where it's been viewed an impressive 22 million times. So, Paul, what did you think about this film?
I really enjoyed this one. Anytime you homage to Suspiria, you're going to have my love. And I mean, this one seemed to wear its Suspiria like right on its twisted neck, I guess we'll say, if we want to use all the
Now,
puns.
are you referencing the original Suspiria or the remake?
I'm thinking the remake.
Ah.
And I did enjoy the remake,
Hmm.
but I do feel like this is more of the stripped down. And when the reference I think it is more because it's a ballerina, the mirrors is really.
It mimics that scene, right? That scene is very, and it's the same body dysmorphia too, where someone is twisted and contorted. So it is very similar to that scene from Suspiria. Yeah, I found myself seeing that too.
It definitely though feels like it has more in line with the new one because of the more realistic visuals of the present day one or the most realist recent one. The bold colors in the original, I don't see too many people trying to pull that off nowadays, but this one has more in line with that. But it's still in the same Suspiria gene pool, and both movies are quite good. I don't know if you've seen the remake, but it's quite good.
I've seen the remake and I saw the original one a long time ago. I just don't remember that much about it.
Yeah, both of them are good. The original has this weird fairy tale feeling that makes it stand out because a lot of those actors are older and they're talking about dialogue that should be for much younger people. I watched the behind the scenes on it and they were like they didn't age up the dialogue, so it gives it a very weird feel. But I'm sure anyone watching this is like, hey, this isn't the Suspiria show. This is the Shorts show. So no, this was really well done. This is the kind of short, like where you tell a student, I want you to make one moment and I want you to do the most with that one moment. And in this short, I think the filmmakers do a great job. It builds up to one big scare with a couple of little before, and it delivers. It even felt believable, which is, I think, really hard in these. She.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. The believability. I made a note about that. What happens sometimes with lower budget horror films, I'm not sure what the budget was, but he talks about in the behind the scenes that it was a skeleton crew, all that kind of stuff. But I think the big selling point on this is they had a professional ballerina
Mhm.
and they had an actual dance studio. And those two things give a lot of credence to it. Oftentimes, beginning filmmakers or lower budget filmmakers will make a film in locations they have available, which is their house, or their parents' house or something like that. And because simply by moving this out of that location and into a more professional location and getting an actor that has a skill set, in this case dancing, it really elevates and brings the whole production up. And this is something I try to teach my students about also. Don't film on campus. I know it's easy, you know, but and you kind of go back to that because immediately it says student filmmaking, that type of thing. And I thought that really helped this movie because I watched a couple of his other shorts and they did fall into that trap. You could actually, I saw two of his films and it was clearly they filmed both of them in either his or his wife's apartment. I saw the same location twice. And so it's just tricky to sell that. I don't want to say higher budget, but certainly a more professional look when you can get away from those convenient locations and get one that looks like it just carries more gravitas.
And well, I think you're also kind of hinting at something that could become a problem with YouTube type filmmaking, right? If you subscribe and you start watching a number of the things that he's done, you start seeing the same location, it bumps for you. because oh, I saw that. So you're out of the
Right.
movie, right? Whereas,
Yeah, I was gonna I was gonna bring on top of that. I can't tell you how many times I've seen him kill his wife in this in his shorts. Yeah, having watched half a dozen of them. But that's not unusual. The director of Lights Out, he does the same thing. He murders his wife several times and it's kind of twisted. And he also uses his own location though.
he's been fortunate though. He's had a lot of success, so his house has changed enough in in the middle of his productions to where it looks different.
Right, right. Well, he does things like he'll do it in the basement one time, he'll do it in the attic the next time, he'll do it in the bedroom the next time. So he kind of mixes it up that way. So David Sandberg does that, but he was one of the early adopters of it. And when you're a groundbreaker like that, you can kind of get away with it a bit better. But people that follow behind have to find something new and inventive, something that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, and I know because like I mean, especially if you become like really engrossed with a filmmaker and you start seeing the same thing over and over again, the same actors can do that too. Even though I mean, it's not their fault; they're just using what they have at their
Sure.
disposal. And I mean, and a lot of times too, it doesn't really hurt them because like you think about the volume of the stuff that's on the internet. What are the odds of someone seeing the same movie he's done back to back to back? You know, you have to really be focused on them like we are, really, to have that experience. But when it does
That's true.
happen, it does pull you out.
Hmm.
The other thing I thought was really well done is I believed the actress. The scary thing happens, and I thought that was a great reaction. Like she sees it and she's like, ugh, and she goes to run, but then she turns and she's curious. I didn't check out because a lot of times in these scares, right, you got to check your brain out like, okay, why are you going back in there? You need to be getting the hell out of here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They can't leave because they're the victim, right? And so if they leave, then the movie's over. Hmm.
Mm. But her, I believed it because she was curious because there's no reason she should think that a mirror was going to hurt her. I would never have thought that. But she plays with it just out of curiosity and fear. And then when it does something different, she kind of plays along with it.
Absolutely. And I think we really need to give a lot of credit to the actress because she plays two different characters
Mhm.
in the same film. And the mirror one is almost childlike, like it's discovering what it can do. And she really does a great job in that performance. Whereas the her actual, I don't know, it's the real life one, um, is terrified and then curious and then of course terrified again when she starts getting attacked. And so I thought she did a very good job and that's so important. Good acting really is so important in these well, in any film, and it really worked well for this one, I thought.
One of the things I noticed about this almost immediately was the cinematography. A lot of times
Hmm.
people like to say what serves the movie is the best cinematography, and I thought that this does a good job of that. They're also working with a mirror. Obviously, the mirror is an effect, like a big green screen, but like I didn't watch the behind the scenes on it, but I mean, I would assume that the mirror was a green screen and they were basically using the set and reversed it.
Yeah, they show it in the behind the scenes, which is helpful. That when the woman's facing the mirror, it's a green screen, and then they shoot the mirror. And it's interesting because he uses that same trick in two of his later films. He does it in Happy Birthday, a short about a woman eating a birthday cake, and then he does the same trick in a movie called Devil Door, um, which I thought was interesting. So he found his his little gimmick there. So
Well, it's a good gimmick. Like, like when you start playing with mirrors, you instantly look. I think if you are someone who is not versed in behind the scenes or mate working on sets, I think the first thing is you're trying to figure out where the camera is. Well, how did they do that? Because he does it handheld, and I mean he had to do that in post the handheld, and it really
right.
works. It makes it
Hmm.
seem like this is really happening. It sells the effect.
It really does. That's a great trick. I forgot where I read that. Was it another film that we viewed earlier? That same concept was applied and how it really helps you buy that it's an actual, not a digital effect, but it's like the two people, but it helps really sell the special effect that you're going by making it a little bit of handheld, that type of thing. So
Yeah, because it just seems like it really happened. It gives it that verite, you know?
they showed in the making of how we did the broken finger effect, which is kind of fun to see how they did that, which I thought worked really well.
Hmm.
And then the twisted head also, how they did that effect. So it was fun to see the behind the scenes because he really does explain how it all worked. But I still think Um, it's the story, the directing, the editing, and the performance are the big things that sell it. Sound also, there's no dialogue, but some sound effects and then some music. The whole thing comes together very well.
It does, and one of the things I like is to, like you said, that the difference in performances. You're right, because like I think the reason why the mirror attacks is because she gets it wrong, right? She doesn't do the same thing. She makes a little mistake and it gets mad. Or at least that's how I took it.
Yeah, the yeah, that was the impression I got is the mirror character can't dance like the dancer can. And then when she discovers that she can harm her, she takes advantage of it, almost maliciously, and but also out of curiosity too. It was sort of it was an interesting creature they created in the mirror, uh, who became malevolent, during the course of the film, almost like a child discovering what they can do, not understanding the difference between right and wrong.
Yeah, and you know, and part of that I think really added that extra layer to it because how often do we see the monster? The monster's here to just be evil. He gives the monster, somewhere to go. It's not, I'm here. It has that arc. It even has an arc like that does.
Right, I think that's a great point. We see the monster evolve and become what it is, and not clearly understand, even at the end, what they've done. And so there's lots of questions about what this creature is in the mirror and all that sort of stuff, which made it fun, I thought. They gave you just enough information to let you think about it. It wasn't, laid out, explained, and it wasn't also so little information that you went, I don't get what's going on at all. It was just enough information. It was like the perfect balance.
I also think that's what makes the neck breaking work. It's not there getting ready to do it. It's not telegraphing. It's almost
Right.
you see where it's like, is this going to work? You know what I mean? Because of the way
Hmm.
it does it. Just you know what I mean? Like it's almost like let's see how big I can go with this, and when it makes that death bigger.
Hmm. Hmm.
And sound
It's really
design
well
was
done.
aspect too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's a character study to a certain degree, watching this creature in the mirror, sort of like you said, evolve. Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean, jealousy is a different emotion to tackle in something like this too. We've seen a lot of these just be, malevolent or just mainly to attack. Like, what is it? The pumpkin one. That monster was just evil. This one,
Hmm.
what other ones? Like Lights Out. There's no real reason. It's just wanting to get to this one. I think what makes this special is the fact that, like you said, this monster grows. And just 7 minutes, that's really impressive, you know? Kind of like pictures.
Yeah, I think you bring up a very good point because I was thinking about Night of the Slasher, where the monster is just on a mission to slash, but by showing this creature, first of all, trying to dance, failing, and then discovering that it can harm the other person, and doing it, like you said, maybe not really out of being evil, but out of curiosity and kind of sadistic curiosity, I guess you could say.
Hmm.
You really kind of go on a journey with his character, which really helps. And it's also very impressive to accomplish that in a short film. It really gives a lot more depth to it rather than just being like a two-dimensional situation.
Which, like, I mean, you and I have talked about this a couple of times, just with the nature of short films. Just before this show, just before we started recording, we were talking about how short films really are a different muscle than feature-length filmmaking. You can almost say like somebody who's a feature-length filmmaker. I mean, we all want to be feature filmmakers. I think because that's where the money is, right? I think that's the biggest reason. That's where the fame is. That's where the awards are. But like, kudos to people who make shorts like this because it really is a different muscle. Like to be able to get so many ideas in a 7 minutes, span. I couldn't imagine
Hmm.
Tarantino doing a 7 minutes movie.
I wonder if you could. I bet it'd be interesting to see. Yeah, but you're right. Usually a short film only contains the second act because it doesn't have time to include a first act and a third act. You know, when the movie's at the end, it's the end of, the third act is just very short. And so, we don't know who this dancer is. We don't know if she has friends or life outside of the dance hall or anything like that. All we know is that she's a dancer coming to practice. And when the movie ends, we don't know what happens to the creature in the mirror. We don't know if someone discovers the body of the dancer. And so it's really just that second act is what most short films focus on, simply because they don't have time to flesh everything out. You know, the first act, you're usually explaining everything, giving the landscape, the characters, relationship of the characters, and then that first twist happens. You know, the plot point one happens, and then you have the big challenges in the second act, and then your third act is when the hero either fails or accomplishes the goal. And in this case, they fail. So yeah, it is interesting to watch these and watch a really good one, which can accomplish uh, a really good evolution of character within just the second act. You know, constructive like what a one act a short screenplay can be.
No, absolutely. And this one also taps into a situation. I mean, everybody finds himself at least one time or another where you're just like maybe like you going to the office by yourself. You're there early in the morning at the university, no one's on the hall with you, or maybe you're the last one to leave. That's a situation that's akin to this one. We all find
Hmm.
ourselves doing something at some point where, we're by ourselves and maybe all that's left, all that we that's accompanying us is our reflection. And that's kind of what this situation is. And I mean, I know I have been guilty of scaring myself when I'm alone doing something, especially at LSU. I'm telling you, I have the scariest office area you have ever seen. I have I have like said, there's a lot of horror movie ideas just in this vicinity.
Hmm.
And I imagine this probably originated in much the same way. It was like, I go dancing all the time by myself, and it's kind of creepy.
Yeah, that's the classic horror movie formula, right? Is to get a group of people, or in this case, an individual, and then you trap them and release a monster on them. And so, um, if you think about all the movies we've watched, I think the only one that kind of varied from that was maybe Pumpkin Guts because they left their actual original location to try and. I mean, they're trapped. Even when they left their original location in Pumpkin Guts, there still were no other people really out there. There weren't cars going by, or I think we even talked about this, you know. And if you even think Finley, the last one we talked about, no one leaves the house. You know, it all takes place with this monster. They can leave the house, but they choose to stay mostly in the house where the events take place. So.
I also think shorts benefit, and I need to do more studying on what I'm about to say here. So I might be saying something that's really left field. Did you see the new Superman movie?
No, I haven't seen
You
it.
don't. So not your thing. So what I was caught by this movie, just talk about Superman on a show like this, but I was kind of startled by the fact that how Superman started in the middle of it. So like there was story already happened. So it happens right in the middle. There's a whole world going on, and then when it finishes, the world continues on. The movie takes for granted that you know who Superman is. You know that he's Clark Kent, that you know he's Lex Luthor. They don't explain who these people are. They assume you know the mythology of Superman so well that you're
Hmm.
going on this ride. I've noticed that with other superhero movies too. But I'm also kind of noticing this with some short films that they take for granted that you have experiences in the outside world that you can latch on to and follow it along. Do you
Can you
see
give an
where
example?
what's that?
Can you give an example?
Like this one for here, like just being alone by yourself, you know? It's they don't have to make you afraid that she's by herself. She's by herself. I've been by myself, so I know that I can be scared for her.
Well, I would say, unlike your Superman example, where you have to be familiar with the mythology of Superman, this horror film, and most horror films actually do this, is that they make you afraid because most people have the same human condition of what they're afraid of. And that's why so many of these movies we watched, I was looking at them, and except for I think Finley, it's always a young female that's alone, okay? And that's your classic horror movie trope, is to do that. And it's been done for decades because they're young and they're vulnerable, and then you trap them somewhere and you release a monster on them. And that's just your classic formula for a horror film. Um, Whereas, let's say you trap Superman in the same horror film, would it be the same situation? You
Well, it
know?
wouldn't be scary, right? Yeah, it's just what I'm feeling like there, and I know it's a stretch, but it's something that's on my mind after watching Superman. I'm almost believing that there's a whole new story structure actually emerging because of that. Taking for granted outside experiences. We typically don't do that in scripts. We give you everything in the movie, and that's how we relate you
Well,
to it.
there's two ways, my understanding, with the screenplays. You can uh, reference what the audience knows and use that, like your Superman example, or you can teach your audience in the movie what they need to know.
Hmm.
Like you could write a brand new Superman movie, and in this case, well, it'd probably be hard to do it with Superman because there's so much lore about Superman that's already known, and the audiences that watch it know and understand that. Um, but when you create something new, like
Well,
a
John,
brand new super
John
John
Wick,
Wick,
I'm sorry to
exactly.
interrupt, but
Okay.
John Wick has a lot of lore, but it assumes that you know enough about this fantasy stuff. Like this stuff has become so ubiquitous, it's like bringing that.
Well,
It.
if you were to watch John Wick 4 without having seen the previous three, you probably wouldn't understand the film as well. John Wick, we learn in the first movie that he loves his dog, that he's an amazing assassin, and that there's this world of assassins out there. And the
Mhm.
movie taught us that. And the following films built upon that. Going in, we didn't know any of that information. But I go and see Superman, and I know Kryptonite's his bad thing. I know Lex Luthor is his enemy. I know Lois Lane is probably showing around there somewhere. And he's Clark Kent wearing glasses, working at the Daily Planet. I know all that stuff, right? But John Wick, I knew nothing about him when I went and saw John Wick.
But what I'm saying is even though like they have like even though they're teaching you about this world, it does lean on that you understand that fantasy in these kind of movies can exist. It just seems to me that there's a layer of like audiences are more in tune now to just different kinds of cinema that they can assume that they don't have to go into the minutia of things now. So we're gonna say like, look, there's a League of Assassins. They don't have to explain it any more than that. My contrast would be Harry Potter, where Harry Potter literally shows you every detail in that first movie of how this all works. In John Wick, they just tell you this is like this, and you just accept it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I know this is a big stretch, but I'm liking that back to the ballerina here. Like I don't need to know, that ballerinas practice or anything like this. We're just so in tune to like what people do in their daily life that when she walks into practice, I assume that she would be there by herself. And I buy into that something scary could happen here. Even though I would imagine to get in there, she would either have to own the studio or be there with someone else. Somebody's there working with her, you know? That's all I'm
What kind
saying.
of horror movie is that, though?
No, but it's not scary. I know what I'm saying. I know I'm reaching. I know, like if I was in court right now, the judge would be boom, 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 reaching, sir. But it just, it's just to me what I'm saying is like one of the things I think makes these horror shorts work is they're so ubiquitous and they do a good job of reaching into things that most people can identify with. Horror is, of course, easier because we're all scared of our mortality, which is why comedy is harder because we all don't find the same things funny.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like your final point there. Yeah, I think another thing is we compared to like let's say 50 years ago, we are so inundated with media that we're very familiar with it. You
Mhm.
know, it's everywhere and we're exposed to quite a bit of it. So we are much more media savvy. Imagine someone from the 19th century. You brought a cowboy and you showed him a movie. Not a what's the old thing when the Lumiere brothers filmed a train coming into the
Yeah.
station? People actually thought the train was coming through the wall. I mean, we laugh now, but
Well, that,
imagine putting 3D glasses on someone from that same period and showing them um, the latest Superman movie, which is also in 3D. You know, they would just be
Mhm.
like, "Ah, oh my God, what's going on here?" And so, yeah, it's we're just more media savvy. We just have, more experience, and we aren't as media savvy as our kids are going to be or our grandkids. And so it's going to probably continue to evolve, right?
No, absolutely. But just imagine this movie, this 7-minute movie or 8-minute movie playing 1950. Okay. Think
Hmm.
about how much longer these movies are. Think about Space Odyssey, for example. Just watching all that, and it just feels so long-winded, no matter how great this movie is. But think about watching this 7-minute movie. Could an audience that way keep up? Would they be asking the question, well, why is a ballerina there? I think they would ask more questions 50 years ago
Could
about
be,
why the
but
actor.
short films were made back then also,
Yeah,
and and plus there were short stories, short plays, and you had comics tell a
yeah,
story in 4 panels.
yeah. I think an audience would have been different with the film medium, but maybe again, maybe I'm reaching here. Maybe I'm seeing something that just isn't there. But I think that's just one of the things that makes these things so visceral and so work so well is that they instantly attack us in situations that we can identify in. And that's what I think this movie does great. Like I said, I've been alone before doing things, and you've been alone. Everybody's been alone at one time. And this movie does just that, makes you feel alone, makes you feel bad this person's alone, and it feels bad that she gets attacked.
You right. We identify with her. She's a hero. We like her. We want her to succeed. We see her struggle. And being a horror movie, she fails. And so
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say before I move on to what other people have said about this, but I think the thing that sets this apart is she does not approach this with fear. She approaches it with curiosity. She's scared at first, but her downfall is curiosity.
mm,
And that's interesting because like that sets this apart. You think about the movies that we've watched. Most of the time, their downfall is not because it's because it happens to them, not because they go back. And
sort
kudos
of a
to the director, for that.
are you getting biblical at this stage here?
Am I? I wasn't trying to be.
The old Eve's curiosity and the
Uh I was just thinking curiosity killed the cat.
well, there's that too.
Whenever he's go easy, man. Always go easy. Let's see. 3 comments. The fact that she's even alone in the building at night in the first place would be scary enough as is. I agree with that. The way these ballerinas have to dance in the scariest is the scariest part. My feet hurt just watching them, man. I did feel
Boy,
that.
that's so true. I watch her stand on her toes like that, and I was like, I don't know how she does it.
I did love that shot where she's on her feet and she's dipping down like that. I love
Mhm.
that shot through the
Mhm.
mirror. Thought that was well done.
Yeah, again, by having a professional ballerina in this movie, really elevated the authenticity and the professionalism of this film.
And this one, final one, it is like every creative person's fear. They're always trying to outdo their self. And finally, there comes a time when your best performance or painting or song is over. You can't outdo yourself anymore. Your prime is gone. You're a has-been, and it hurts you. It destroys your creativity in a way. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading into this too much. I loved it though. Good film. I love that when somebody brings something. I didn't think about it like that, but I can
That's a
see.
pretty bleak outlook, yeah.
But you know what? But to be said, I can see that could have been a reason why this director made this movie. Maybe not, but I can see it. I love that. Nobody ever watches the same movie, right?
That's true. That's the interesting thing about it is, I think we've mentioned this before that once you release the movie, it's no longer yours. It's now the audience's.
Awesome. Well, this was a good one, Hamp. So, what are we doing next time? What's the next movie? What's the next horror that we've got out?
We're gonna watch a horror short from 4 years ago called Don't Peek.
That one has a great jump scare at the end. All right. Well, until next time, I'm Paul. This is Hamp, and this is 100 Scariest. Like, share, and tell us if you want us to watch something or have an idea for a short that we should watch. Until then, see you next time.